start?
Dr. Ethan Watson. I'm in the Econ and Finance Department here at UNCW. I've been running this consulting project for a couple of years now.
I am Dr. Mark Pelletier. I have taken I've taught a few of these classes, a couple MBAs, and then with Dr. Watson, I also took this year's group to Prague. So I've done a couple of these as well, and I'm in the marketing department here at UNCW.
Okay, great. Where do you see the values of the consulting programs from the faculty leaders' perspectives and student perspectives?
Well, I think here at UNCW we do a lot of applied learning opportunities for our students, and this is one of those great examples of applied learning. So we can, from the student perspective, they get a lot out of it, not just the content of the consulting project, but a lot of soft skill stuff as well, from working in teams, leading teams, etc. And there's a soft skill aspect for us as well, of like
Absolutely.
making sure that we're keeping those teams running. So it's a little bit
Dealing with some ambiguity.
Yeah, some project management
Yeah.
skills, some dealing with ambiguity, etc.
Because it's one of these projects that you don't really know how it's going to go. I think this, from the student perspective, I think when they primarily get into it, they're looking at it as a line item on their resume, and it certainly is that. It's a good resume builder, it's a good conversation starter, but what I think they don't realize is what they're actually going to get out of it is really an understanding of what it's like to actually run a consulting project, because there is actual skin in the game here, and we are doing this project with a real company and presenting it to real corporate executives. So it's a little bit different than just doing a regular presentation or a project in a class, because it's not just for us. We ultimately grade it, but it's going to be pretty obvious whether or not that particular company thinks they've done a good job.
Yeah, they've got to get in and do their homework and research the company and research the business problem, and just a lot of real world skills I think they get from it.
100%, yeah. What I call get or done skills. Skills that you can actually go with you into the practitioner world that is highly desirable, I think, on the job market.
How do you integrate the consulting program into your courses?
So how we do it is that it is a course. It is its own separate course. It is a 2-day-a-week course. It is longer than most traditional courses because we go during spring break. So it's really sort of the front half of our spring semester. And this is a situation where, from an instructor perspective, we have to be a little bit flexible, make sure that we keep it on the rails. But the way that we run it, there are team leads. This time we had 3 team leads, but it could be more, it could be less, depending on the complexity of the project. But those team leads really are in charge of making sure that their own individual teams are able to get through what they need to get through. And there is a set of deliverables that GIOBA lays out beforehand, so there's definitely deadlines along the way. But we are there to sort of be a resource for them, to make sure that everything's working, make sure that the teams don't get too siloed, and to really keep an aspect of, it is a student consulting project, and our big goal, I think, is to maintain the integrity of the student part of that. Make sure they're learning from each other, make sure there's communication going on, if there's any conflict. And listen, this is a high-stress project, so that can happen from time to time, but we're there to sort of make sure that everything is going the way it goes. It's not necessarily that we control what takes place, but we can nudge and we can suggest, but at the end of the day, it is their project. So it's a class, it ends during spring break, and I think that is a nice thing for some students to know, is that it is a study abroad, but you can get it done real quickly, and then the second half of the spring semester that class is not there. So it's sort of a short and intense class.
Yeah, I think I would just add that we've added it into our curriculum so it can count as a marketing course towards the marketing concentration. It can count as a Fin or an Econ course towards our concentration. And we've worked with departments in the past to get it counted in other concentration prefixes like INB for international business, supply chain, etc.
Right. And it's another thing that students like about it. It's a 3-credit course.
Yeah. So we've been able to integrate it into the curriculum.
Could you describe how the project functions when working with a client and GIOBA remotely?
Yeah, it's a great question. So GIOBA is responsible for at least identifying the company that we're going to work with in the Czech Republic. So they are the contact. They lay out, as Mark said a second ago, the deliverables kind of on the front end of here's what the business problem is that this client is defining, and here's how we see a series of deliverables across the first half of the spring semester. So they're in charge of getting that client, laying out the deliverables, and then we come in and say, okay, here's what we think on these deliverables. Are these doable? So there's a lot of coordination, collaboration back and forth between the two.
Yep. Nice thing about today, 2020, whenever we're recording this 2022, but I'm sure we'll talk about this moving forward, is that really collaborating with somebody internationally, it's not
So
that big
much
of a deal
easier.
anymore, right? So in this particular class, we had, so this was a South Korea-based project for a company called Budvar. They're all different. But in this time, we had a Zoom meeting during our regular class time with a Czech expert and a South Korean expert. And so they were able to talk to them. Our team leads also are in constant communication with the members of GIOBA, so making sure that it's all there. So really, just in terms of the collaboration and how it takes place from a functional standpoint, it's pretty easy, really, to be honest with you. I think most people now are used to Zoom meetings and international and that kind of stuff. So it actually is probably easier now than it ever has been, just because we're used to the technology. Everybody has Zoom on their phone or on something, and they're able to talk that way.
Yeah, it's one of the skill sets that we see the students get from this, right? Is that we
Yeah.
live and work in an international world now, and time zones matter. But we were
It does, yeah. They're gonna have to know that.
able to
Yeah.
overcome all of those through the course of this project. So it was
Yep.
a good learning experience for us and the students. Really.
And the last part there is how do we evaluate students? It's sort of all encompassing. It's kind of a it's a graded project. It is a 3-credit class, and there are grades involved. So really, it's what do they take? How do they perform when they're there? There are definite behavioral situations that we need to take into account. You can't go to Czech Republic and Prague and we never see you again. But it's also, in this project, I think the biggest rewards grade-wise come from those that step up to the plate, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you definitely see a situation where the cream rises to the top and there's people that really want to be involved and all that. So I think it's not all that hard to evaluate it from an academic standpoint, from a grade standpoint.
Yeah, those are some of our favorite stories that you and
Yeah.
I have reminisced over of
Yeah.
people that weren't necessarily in formal leadership positions, but really kind of stepping up
Yeah.
and rising to the occasion. So
And that's why team leads are so important, is because they really drive the other students. Ethan and I telling them you need to step up is just Ethan and I telling them. But when the team leads are there and they see that it's all coming together and sort of this bonding, you really see some students come out of their shells and really sort of grow from the experience, which is great.
What roles and areas do you consider important to be provided by faculty and not GIOBA during the project?
So that's an interesting point. GIOBA is very much the business aspect of it. So they are in contact with the company. They have explained the process of how it's going to be, and they primarily contact with the team leads, right? They don't necessarily talk to each of the individual students. It's all sort of filtered through the team leads. So they are very much the business side of it, the consulting side of it. They have a consulting background. They know a lot about these companies, and they're in constant contact with them. Our job is to make sure the student aspect of it comes out, because it's a student consulting project, right? If it was a straight business project, sometimes the stress of that is just too much or just becomes overwhelming. So we have to filter that through the aspect of how does this relate to your econ fin courses, your marketing courses, and what can you take from this moving forward? So I think it's kind of a cool blend that we have there. We definitely have our roles, GIOBA is going to make sure that the project is great. The student work ethic is going to make sure the project is great. And we know the project is probably going to be great. But also we have to make sure that, you know, if there's no communication between the students going on, that we have to sort of facilitate that. If there's a student that's kind of lagging behind, it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to do it. It's our job to sort of motivate them in that way. So it's less of a direct teaching lecture style and more of an overarching, what are the social and work-based dynamics that are taking place here, and how can we arrange it and put it into positions to make sure that it's as successful as it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of our role is like setting the culture in that room.
100%. Yeah.
So that make sure that if one person's maybe dominating the conversation,
Right.
how do we make sure that it's open and inclusive to understand that everybody's making a contribution here and just kind of setting the culture stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And GIOBA does a good job at that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You already touched on this a little bit, but how do you evaluate the students at the end of the project?
Do you want to take it?
You can take it.
Well, so we've had a number of assignments.
Yes.
We will typically start this project prior to the
Yeah.
spring semester. So we will meet with them in the fall, and then they go home for the holiday break with an assignment that's part of their first deliverable, right? So they'll have to do an external analysis. Usually, we've sent them home with parts of that
Yeah.
over the December break, so that they come back in and they're ready to hit the ground. So that's like the first assignment.
Yeah, the holiday assignment.
Yeah.
And sometimes that scares some students away, but it is so intense that if you come in on January and you don't know what you're talking about, we have to hit the ground running, because it is, we have to be all talking the same language at least.
Yeah, and then the other assignments, like some years they've been a little bit more formal, some have been a little bit less formal, of like maybe weekly updates from team leads.
Right.
In a written format. This last year, we had pretty strong team leads that
Yeah.
were allowed, we kind of let them have some flexibility in that, so that we were getting those more verbally and not necessarily
Right.
as formally, but
And there's definitely parts that are, you know, due, as we see
yeah, and then we
deliverables
have
that, you know,
deliverables along the way.
milestones. On this week we have to have this done. On this week we have to have this done. And so we give a lot of leeway to the team leads in that way. But when it's all said and done and the project is over, it's pretty clear how it's going to be graded, right? You know, is it a success from both the student point of view? Is it success from the consulting point of view? And did they, by they meaning the students, do what we asked them to do? You know, if we do a great project, but for some reason the CEO says, "Oh, I can't stand it," hey, they still did a great project. You know, so we have to take that into account as well.
And there's two big deliverables at the end of.
Huge
There's a
Yes.
document that they're going to
Yes.
turn over to this company
Right.
that has their market analysis, what their consulting recommendations are,
Yeah.
and then the presentation that is in
actual
front of the
presentation.
executives. So,
Right.
there's two very stark deliverables there at the end. that
Right.
we can assign a grade to as
Stressful.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you recommend any other faculty to jump in and incorporate such types of projects into their courses?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely,
that's
yeah.
The
Yeah.
answer, yeah.
I think how we do it,
Yeah.
which is, it is a class. I don't know if I would incorporate this into a course because it's so intense.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so much work that I really like that we have it as its own class. So I would definitely say that I mean, we've had multiple students come back, and tell us that this is the defining class of their college career. Like they've taken more out of this than anything. And it's funny because when we have these students talking to our current students, you can sort of see the current students thinking, well, that's not true. And then after they get back from Prague,
They're singing the praises.
say, oh, I want to come talk to the class and tell them how fantastic it is.
Yeah.
And another nice thing about how we incorporate it too is that it really is there is a marketing function and a marketing aspect to it, and then a very hard and fast finance, econ function to it. A lot of finance in terms of the financial analysis that
Yep.
takes place. So it is good because it is sort of that mixture of the two. They get all those skills.
Yeah. Widening of perspectives for students, I think.
Exactly.
Because throughout the process, the way we've structured it in the past with different teams to hit the different deliverables, we've made sure that it wasn't just necessarily all the finance
Right.
students together.
Yeah.
Or just the marketing students together. right? So there was some collaboration.
Just like in real life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're gonna have to talk to, marketing people are gonna have to speak to finance people are gonna have to speak to marketing people.
Yeah.
So it's nice that it's that way.
Do either of y'all have any final thoughts?
I would just highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's a great project. GIOBA is a great partner to work with. I think the students, the consulting partners, the instructors, I think we all get a lot out of it. But it's just it's a nice project for the students it's nice to see them start here and then end as an expert in something that they didn't necessarily think they were going to be an expert in.
And just the number of students over the years that we've been doing this at UNCW that have come back and said,
Are you still doing frog?
Yeah, well, I went on an interview with this company and that's all they wanted to talk about
Yeah.
in the interview was my experience doing this international consulting project, and it's landed people jobs, so.
Yeah, I haven't
I
talked to
think
one
that's-
student that didn't have high praises for it, that
Yeah.
has come back. Yeah.
I mean, the saying is like the proof is in the pudding. I
Right.
think that's really.
And the nice thing is that they say this about it, and it is admittedly a difficult project to get done. It is
Oh,
a lot of
absolutely.
hard work, but it's rewarding at the end, and I think that's the number one thing that students understand about it.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.